From the dojo to the octagon, this is Budocast, your source for the latest in martial arts news, culture, and competition. From breaking fight results to evolving techniques, we cover it all. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
So, right after the biggest fight of Gillian Robertson's life this past weekend, her coach grabbed a live microphone.
On the Paramount broadcast, right?
Exactly. He grabs the mic on the Paramount broadcast and essentially says, she might not be good enough to go any further, and I am simply too tired to keep trying.
Which is just, it's incredibly raw.
Right. It was wild. So today, we're taking a deep dive into the brutal reality of the athletic ceiling. We're looking at the massive fallout from the UFC 330 card in Philadelphia, alongside some staggering structural shifts happening right now in jewelry kickboxing and the BKB bare knuckle scene.
It's a phenomenal stack of sources to go through today.
Yeah.
And tying all of this together is a central, undeniable theme, which is legacy versus reality.
Legacy versus reality.
Yeah. Like, how do fighters or coaches or even promoters navigate the physical realities of aging, right? The hard ceilings of athletic potential and just the ever-shifting definition of what success actually means in modern combat sports.
I mean, we really have to start with that stark reality of hitting a ceiling because we saw it play out in real time during the UFC 330 co-main event.
We really did.
Yeah, Mackenzie Dern defended her strawweight title against Gillian Robertson, and it was a dominant, unanimous decision for Dern. You know, the scorecards were 49-46, 49-46, and 48-47.
Right.
And Robertson came in heavily promoting her own grappling, claiming she was the superior submission artist, but she completely shut down that narrative.
She did. And, you know, the mechanism of how she did it was basically a masterclass in positional dominance.
Oh, absolutely.
Dern showcased this vastly improved wrestling to proactively take the grappler down.
Yeah.
And once they were on the mat, Dern didn't just lay there. She utilized heavy hip displacement.
Right, by driving her pelvis into Robertson.
Exactly, flattening her out completely. By doing that, Dern totally neutralized Robertson's ability to create the angles needed to escape, or to throw up submissions off her back.
Yeah, because you need those angles to work.
Exactly. Dern threatened a very deep rear naked choke in the first round and just maintained this punishing top control for the majority of the 25 minutes.
And even with that absolute masterclass in control, Dern was actually highly critical of herself afterward.
She was.
Yeah, she was disappointed she didn't secure the submission finish. She admitted that by the championship 4th and 5th rounds, her legs were just too tired to lock it in.
Which is a brilliant piece of physiological insight for you listening. Like, when you're grappling at that intensity for 20 minutes, your leg muscles are completely starved of oxygen.
Yeah, completely gassed.
Right. And to secure a rear naked choke against a high-level opponent, you usually need a body triangle locking your legs around their torso to prevent them from turning.
Right.
That requires immense sustained leg torque. When your legs are burned out, that triangle loosens, the pressure drops, and a slippery grappler like Robertson can just squirm out. Dern recognized her own physical limits in that moment.
But the most jarring recognition of physical and mental limits didn't actually happen inside the cage. It was that Paramount post-fight broadcast moment I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, the Din Thomas interview.
Yes. Coach Din Thomas, who is an absolute staple in the MMA community, abruptly announced his retirement from cornering fighters.
Just out of nowhere.
Right. And to me, looking at his demeanor, it felt exactly like a startup founder who's been burning the candle at both ends for a decade, suddenly looking at the company's metrics and realizing, we have hit our absolute scaling limit.
Yeah.
We aren't going to become a unicorn, and I am just too exhausted to keep pushing this boulder up the hill.
The layers of transparency in his rationale were stunning. First, he outlined the sheer logistical grind. Like, being a high-level MMA coach isn't just holding focus mitts for an hour a day.
Far from it.
It is managing the grueling weight cut process, monitoring sauna temperatures, tracking water loading schedules.
Sitting in a blistering hot room for hours while your fighter physically suffered.
Exactly, all before going into a high-stakes tactical chess match. It requires this obsessive, draining level of devotion that Thomas admitted he can just no longer provide.
But isn't a coach ultimately supposed to be like the eternal optimist? You never really hear a coach say their fighter isn't good enough. Usually it's all, we'll come back stronger, we just need to tweak a few things.
That is the unwritten rule of coaching, right? Which is why his assessment of Gillian Robertson was so staggering.
Yeah.
He said, and I quote, "I told myself I would see her journey out and take her as far as I think she can go, and this might be as far as she can go.
Wow. That just totally breaks the eternal optimism rule.
It does. But martial arts is a sport governed by harsh physical and stylistic limits. Robertson is a phenomenal grappler, but she couldn't establish her positions against a champion who was stronger, heavier on top, and possessed superior grappling architecture.
Yeah.
Knowing a fighter's ceiling, recognizing when their physical and technical attributes have been entirely maximized, is a heartbreaking but entirely essential part of martial arts reality. Thomas looked in the mirror, for both himself and his fighter, and simply accepted what he saw.
It's incredibly heavy, but, martial arts is a spectrum. While some hit their ceiling, the sources for this deep dive also show us veterans who are actively smashing through theirs by forcing constant evolution.
Yes.
You don't have to hit a wall if you refuse to stay static. And we saw some incredible veteran longevity at UFC 330 that proves exactly that.
It is the perfect counter-narrative.
Yeah.
If you want to survive the modern MMA meat grinder, you have to continually reinvent yourself. Take Jalen the Tarantula Turner.
Oh, man, what a performance.
Right. He comes back from brief retirement. He just stepped away in March 2025 after a bad submission loss, and he flatlines Cal Fernandez with a vicious 39-second knockout in the first round.
And what he did right after was so classy. He used his microphone time to pay homage to the legendary Edson Barboza.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
Because Turner actually defeated Barboza previously, and Barboza officially announced his own retirement that very night at UFC 330 after a brutal loss.
Yep.
Turner was just really raw on the mic, saying he wants his comeback journey to inspire people going through hardships.
It highlights the brutal cycle of the sport. Barboza reaches the absolute end of his phenomenal run, hitting that final ceiling, while Turner finds a way to reboot his own operating system. But the absolute poster child for veteran evolution on this card, without a doubt, was Neil Magny.
39 years old.
I know.
Neil Magny survives the massive early scare to rally back and TKO Ramiz Brahimaj in round 2. This marks his 25th UFC win.
That's just insane longevity.
He is now tied with Charles Oliveira for the second most wins in UFC history, sitting only behind Jim Miller, who has 28.
And the context of those wins is what matters mechanically here. Magny is 3-1 in his last 4 fights, with all 3 of those wins coming by finish.
Right, he's not just squeaking by.
Exactly. He isn't clinging to the roster by eking out safe, boring decisions against unranked opponents. He is fighting absolute killers. Yaroslav Amosov, Carlos Prates, Michael Morales, Ian Machado Gary.
A murderer's row.
Truly. Fighting highly active, dangerous prospects forces you to react faster and sharpen your tools. He is swimming in the deepest, most lethal waters of the welterweight division, and he's doing it through sheer volume of activity.
And if we're talking about sharpening tools and adding new weapons to survive, we have to talk about Charles Johnson.
Oh, absolutely.
He took home a $100,000 bonus for locking in a Scottish twister submission over Eduardo Henrique. A Scottish twister? Like, for a guy known mostly as a striker, to pull out something that complex is mind-blowing.
It is a total masterclass in grappling mechanics. For those who don't know, a twister is a spinal lock. It requires you to isolate the opponent's legs, usually by grapevining their leg with your own, to pin their hips securely to the mat. Once the lower body's locked in one direction, you reach up, secure their head or arm, and pull their cervical spine in the exact opposite direction. You are essentially wringing their spine out like a wet towel, creating devastating spinal torsion.
And the Scottish part of it.
The Scottish variation involves a specific, highly technical grip on the upper body to maximize leverage.
And Johnson said he actually hits it 1 or 2 times a week in practice. He specifically sought out former Bellator champion Patchy Mix to learn the intricacies of that exact leg entanglement.
That's the evolution right there.
Yeah, like if you're listening to this and you've been doing the same job the same way for 10 years, think about that. Charles Johnson is an established UFC veteran, but he's still willing to walk into the gym, humble himself, and ask a guy from a rival promotion to teach him a brand new, highly complex submission.
Activity and evolution. Johnson has fought 4 times this year alone. Neil Magny stays incredibly active.
Really?
When you combine that high fight frequency with an egoless willingness to learn new mechanics, you keep your ceiling moving. The moment you stop adding tools, the ceiling crashes down on you.
Activity really is the magic word here. Before we dive deeper, shout out to our sponsors. First up, Elite Sports, leaders in premium fightwear for BJJ and MMA. Whether you're rolling or striking, they've got gear built to move with you. Check them out at elitesports.com. And if you're a school owner looking to optimize your dojo's performance, you need to check out Lotus by Open Black Belt. It's the ultimate management software for tracking ranks, attendance, and billing. They are currently offering a free trial to our listeners. Streamline your business so you can spend more time on the mats. Visit openblackbelt.com to start your trial today. You can find links for both in the show notes. And if you've got a story, news tip, or question, send it to us at budocast.com.
So we've established the mechanisms of how activity keeps middle-of-the-pack veterans alive and evolving.
Yeah.
But the dynamic shifts dramatically when that demand for activity reaches the absolute top of the food chain where the belts are held.
Let's look at the UFC 330 main event to see exactly how that works. Islam Makhachev successfully defended his 170-pound welterweight belt against Ian Machado Gary in a gritty, incredibly bloody unanimous decision.
Very bloody.
Yeah. But the real structural shockwave happened at the post-fight press conference. Carlos Prates, who is 32 years old and currently riding a terrifying 3-fight knockout streak, issued a chilling warning.
Yeah, he did.
He told Makhachev, "I will knock you out. I will bring that belt to Brazil."
A classic promotional call-out.
Yeah.
But Makhachev's reaction defied all the usual matchmaking logic.
Right. Instead of brushing Prates off or pointing out that Prates needs to fight higher-ranked guys first, Makhachev entirely agreed with him.
Yeah, he was completely on board.
Makhachev flat out said Prates deserves the next title shot over established, undefeated contenders like Michael Morales or Shavkat Rakhmonov. He said, and I quote, "Shavkat is not fighting, Prates is still fighting, still active. Morales is good, but I don't remember the last time he fought." So, is this the definitive proof that the UFC machine now outright prioritizes sheer activity over careful strategic record management?
It proves that an active champion's biological clock dictates the entire division's ecosystem.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, Makhachev is 34 years old. He explicitly stated he took no major injuries against Gary, and he has a hard, unmovable deadline coming up, which is Ramadan.
Break down why Ramadan is such a hard stop for an MMA fighter.
It really comes down to the physiology of the weight cut. A 170-pound fighter like Makhachev might naturally walk around at 190 pounds.
Right, they cut a lot of water weight.
Exactly. To make weight, they undergo this grueling dehydration process during fight week, followed by a massive 24-hour rehydration camp to put the fluid back into their brain and muscles before they step into the cage.
Yeah.
During Ramadan, practicing Muslims fast from both food and water during all daylight hours. You simply cannot undergo a severe dehydration and rehydration cycle when you are legally and religiously prohibited from drinking water while the sun is up.
Your organs would fail.
Absolutely. Makhachev knows he must fight before Ramadan begins around the end of January 2026. He cannot afford to sit around while contenders like Shavkat Rakhmonov negotiate the perfect contract.
He needs a body right now.
Precisely. And an active champion demanding an active challenger fundamentally rewires the behavior of the entire top 10.
How so?
Because it punishes fighters who try to sit on their ranking to protect their brand. When the champion says, "I will only fight the guy who fought last month," it forces everyone else to get off the couch, risk their records, or just watch the title shot pass them by.
Makhachev's demand proves the UFC machine thrives on active individuals. Like the UFC needs a Carlos Prates to build his brand through activity so they can eventually sell the pay-per-view on his name.
Yep.
But across the combat sports world, another major promotion is making a terrifyingly opposite bet, that the individual fighter doesn't matter at all.
We are watching a fascinating real-time economic experiment in the kickboxing world with Julie Kickboxing.
Right. Glory's CEO, Marshall Zelaznik, recently made this incredibly blunt public admission. He literally stated, "We don't pay for your name."
Such a wild thing to say out loud.
And because they refuse to pay for star power, Glory is currently bleeding generational talent. We don't need to list the entire roster, but let's look at the two biggest examples. Rico Verhoeven, the undisputed heavyweight king, just vacated his belt after 13 defenses and more than a decade as the face of the company.
Yeah, citing a lack of clear communication about his value.
Exactly. And before that, Cedric Dombé, one of their most electric stars, packed up his massive fan base and left for the PFL, a rival MMA promotion with incredibly deep pockets backed by Middle Eastern investment.
Not to mention guys like Tijani Bistadi and Levi Richter's leaving for MMA, or Jamal Ben Sadek joining the WFL.
Yeah.
And Zelaznik isn't blinking. He's entirely unfazed by losing his biggest draws.
Wait, let me challenge that for a second. Is Zelaznik's gamble really that crazy? Didn't the UFC itself build a multi-billion-dollar empire by promoting the three letters UFC over individual fighters for years? Why wouldn't that exact same model work for Glory Kickboxing?
It's a great question, but the economics are entirely different. The UFC succeeded with that model because, for a long time, they held a virtual monopoly on top-tier MMA talent.
Oh, right.
If you wanted to see the best fight the best, you had to watch the UFC. Glory does not have a monopoly on elite striking. Promotions like the PFL or the World Fighting League have massive financial backing and can easily outbid Glory for a star like Cedric Doumbé.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And when Doumbé leaves, his millions of followers go with him.
I see. To me, Glory's strategy feels like a legendary Michelin star restaurant deciding to fire all of its celebrity chefs because management has convinced themselves that the customers are only paying to sit in the beautiful dining room.
That's perfect.
Right, like they actually believe people are paying for the ambiance of the building, not the specific food the chef puts on the plate.
The restaurant analogy hits the nail on the head. Zalaznick is restructuring the entire 2026 calendar around frequent title defenses and belts across fewer weight classes.
Okay.
His theory is that the brand of Glory and the physical gold belts themselves are the draw. He wants a promotion where the concept of a championship carries the weight, rather than the marquee name on the poster.
But combat sports are inherently visceral and emotional.
Exactly. Fans don't root for pieces of leather and zinc. They root for human beings. When Rico Verhoeven makes his walkout, the crowd is feeling a decade of shared history, rivalries, and emotional investment.
Yeah, you cannot just slap a vacant title on two unknown kickboxers and expect the audience to care with the same intensity.
By refusing to pay for names, Glory might be saving money on the immediate balance sheet, but they are bankrupting their emotional capital with their fan base.
It's risky. Now, Glory fighters are walking out the door to protect their financial worth and their meticulously built brand names. But in a completely different corner of the combat sports world, we have an undefeated fighter deliberately doing the exact opposite.
Oh, yes.
He is throwing caution to the wind and risking his pristine, highly marketable record in one of the most brutal new arenas imaginable.
The BKB bare-knuckle signing of Sharif Rahman.
Yes. Sharif C3 Rahman has a perfect 9-0 professional boxing record. He is the son of the legendary two-time heavyweight champion Hasim Rahman.
Which is a huge name.
Massive. By all traditional boxing metrics, his management should be carefully curating his next few opponents, fiercely protecting that 0 on his record to build leverage for a massive payday down the line.
Right.
Instead, he signs a multi-fight deal with BKB bare-knuckle boxing. He's going to be fighting without gloves inside their unique 3-sided ring known as the Trigon.
It is a jarring pivot, mostly because bare-knuckle fighting changes the entire geometry of violence.
How so?
Well, in traditional boxing, you wear 10-ounce gloves, which act as shields. You can use the earmuff guard to block incoming shots, and you fight in a square ring where you can circle out laterally to avoid pressure.
Yeah.
BKB strips all of that away. Without massive gloves, you cannot hide behind your guard. Small bare knuckles slip right through the gaps.
Wow.
Furthermore, fighting in a 3-sided triangle cuts off your lateral movement drastically. You are forced into the center, into the pocket, engaging in close-range exchanges where severe facial and hand damage is virtually guaranteed.
So why do it? Like, why risk the undefeated record?
Well, Rahman gave this incredibly insightful quote.
Oh.
Yeah, he said, being undefeated is important in today's day and age, but I'm an old soul.
An old soul.
He explicitly rejects the modern blueprint set by guys like Floyd Mayweather, Terrence Crawford, and Andre Ward. This pervasive idea that you have to navigate your career perfectly and retire unblemished to be considered a legend.
Right.
Rahman argues that most historical legends actually have a loss on their records, and that taking a defeat in the pursuit of greatness doesn't erase your legacy.
He's diagnosing a psychological illness in modern fight culture, honestly.
He really is.
For the last 2 decades, the absolute obsession with the perfect 0 has arguably stalled traditional boxing. Promoters and fighters became so terrified of losing their unblemished marketing angle that the best athletes actively avoided fighting their toughest peers until they were well past their athletic primes.
Yeah, the sport lost years of incredible matchups to sheer business caution.
And Rahman is bringing a perfect record into a sport whose very physics do not allow for a cautious approach.
Exactly. He is embracing the old school mentality. You test your skills against the absolute best, knowing full well that if you roll the dice enough times against elite competition, a loss is mathematically inevitable.
It's incredibly refreshing. And if you are listening to this right now, especially if you're a perfectionist at your job, you know exactly how paralyzing that fear of a single failure can be.
Absolutely.
Rahman is basically saying that protecting your perfection is actually what destroys your potential legacy. Whether you are managing your athletic career, running a business, or setting personal goals, the lessons from this weekend are profound.
So true.
You have to be honest enough to look in the mirror and recognize when you've hit a hard ceiling, like Din Thomas did on live television. When you hit that ceiling, you have to stay active and force yourself to evolve, adding new tools to your arsenal like Neil Magny and Charles Johnson.
Yeah.
And most importantly, you cannot be so terrified of losing your perfect resume that you stop taking real bare-knuckle risks.
That's a great takeaway. And I will leave you with one final thought to mull over as we watch this entire landscape shift.
Yeah.
As combat sports continue to fracture into these highly specific, specialized leagues, whether it's fighting bare knuckle and BKB's three-sided trigon, or top strikers fleeing to the PFL and the New World Fighting League, and as legacy promoters like Jalory flat out refuse to pay to retain their biggest stars, we have to wonder about the future of the sport's identity. Will we ever see the era of a single, universally recognized, undisputed global legacy again? Or are the days of the mythological, larger-than-life combat sports superstar officially over, soon to be replaced by a fragmented world of highly specialized regional kings?
The mirror is definitely fracturing into a lot of different pieces. That's it for this episode of Budocast. Thanks for joining us as we break down the latest in martial arts. We'll be back soon with more news, stories, and insights. Until then, train hard, stay humble.